Caufield is on pace to do something only 6 Montreal Canadiens have ever done, and I think he's got a pretty good chance of doing it.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for making us the number one sports podcast network here at Locked On. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as That Maybe It's Ian. I'm not joined today by the wonderful Laura Saba, also known as the Actor Stick. Laura is taking in the Montreal Victoire home opener. So hope that went well. I'm very much looking forward to checking it out after this one. Always rooting for the Victoire. But look, we've still got a show for you guys. Still have one loaded. But as you know with me, this is going to be a numbers-based program. I'm going to dive into the numbers a little bit more here for your Montreal Canadiens and get to the bottom of some things. I want to talk about the pace that some of the players are on. We're at the quarter mark of the season. We'll sort of figure out if these paces are sustainable for these players. I want to talk about Juraj Slafkovsky potentially killing penalties. The Basu and Cadet Notebook got a question this week about it, and I wanted to dive into it a little bit more because I think it's a very interesting concept for the Canadiens as they're looking to evolve their penalty kill and honestly just add some more help to that unit. And then finally, goaltending is going to remain a topic until the Canadiens make it no longer so. And I think we need to dive into some of the numbers that the Canadiens are putting up in front of their goaltending and potentially come to some conclusions about whether or not these guys can dig themselves out of the hole that they've dug themselves. So let's take a look first at some paces. So we checked on this earlier on in the year. Obviously, the numbers early on were pretty gaudy for anybody in this league. You're either on pace for 1,000,000 points or 2 points, and there was no in between. Now, things have certainly mellowed out in that direction a little bit, but there's still some pretty gaudy numbers across the board here for the Canadiens. I want to start with the team as a whole. Right now, they've got 25 points in the standings. Over the course of an 82-game season, if they were to continue this pace, they'd find themselves ending the year with 97 points. That would be the most since the 2016-17 Canadiens, who picked up 103. And I thought to myself, when I did this exercise and I was doing the math, I thought I did this one wrong because 97, given what the Canadiens have gone through over the last few games, few weeks at this point, 97 felt very high for what they've been able to put together. But it turns out that's the correct pace, a 97-point pace, given they have a 595 points percentage in this one so far. I think this team ends up somewhere around 95 points. I don't know that they're a 97-point team yet. I know it seems like splitting hairs, but we saw last year how difficult those points are to get at the end of the season. And especially just looking around the league, the rest of the league is very tightly packed. The Canadiens are only 2 points out of first place in their own division, but they find themselves, at least on Tuesday evening as I'm recording this, on the outside of the playoff picture. That's going to change. A lot of these teams will either fall off or take steps forward, and we'll sort of, I think we'll be left without a middle at some point. It'll just be the haves and have-nots in the NHL. But for right now, it's just a bunch of haves and then the Leafs and the Sabres and the Blues and the Predators who are just no good. So I'm going to take the under on the Canadiens, 97 points so far. What they're on pace for, but I think it's slight. I think they finished with 95 points. I think I've said that since the beginning of the season. 97 would be great. It probably guarantees them a playoff spot. 95 means they're probably still fighting for one, and maybe they have to get some help to get there. But I still think that this is in the right ballpark. Nick Suzuki, last time we did this pulse, this sort of pace check, he was, I believe, on pace for about 100 points. That has simply just fallen off, given that he's been dealing with some kind of, I don't want to say injury, but ailment. Let's call it an ailment. I think that's probably the best word to use. He's now got 23 points, on pace for 89 points. That number should sound familiar because it's what he had last year. It was the career high that he set last season. I think Suzuki gets back on track soon. I think a lot of this too has come at a time when Cole Caulfield has been shooting a lot and not necessarily scoring. Getting to Cole Caulfield in just a moment here. But I'm going to take the over on 89 points for Nick Suzuki, the pace that he's on. I think there's a good chance that he gets into the 90-point plateau and that this is the slowdown. It's not necessarily the pace that he'll continue at for the rest of the year. I think he gets back to his scoring ways, especially as the power play picks back up. We talked about it yesterday on the show that I think the power play is on the cusp of breaking out again. Just the movement that they've had, the chances that they've generated, they'll be able to pull themselves out of this. I think if they're managed to do that, Suzuki's going to be featured heavily in that sort of power play revival. Next, teased it off the top. It's the big one for me. Cole Caulfield, 13 goals. He is on pace for a 50-goal season, 50 even for Cole Caulfield. He would become the 7th Hab all time to do that, which it seems like maybe there should be more of those guys, but for there to be 6 players who have scored 50 goals in a season, Caufield inserting himself into a list that includes Guy Lafleur, Stéphane Richer, Steve Shutt had a 60-goal year, I believe. I think that would be that would be sort of legacy making for this player. It would also, I think, legitimize this era of Canadiens hockey as actually, full of really, really talented players. I think in the back of my mind, there's still this air that, the other shoe is going to drop eventually. And we're not going to be talking about these guys in the sense that they are all incredibly talented and just really offensively gifted hockey players. But if he puts up a 50-goal season, especially in a year like this where they're expected to take a step and, they're going to be they're hopefully a playoff team, I think that's a big deal for not only him, but for, the people who always joke, that Cole Caulfield is the greatest 50-goal scorer who's never scored 40. And that would still be the case because I don't believe Cole Caulfield didn't have 40 goals last year. He would, he would be a 50-goal scorer who never touched 40, which is fine by me if he just, all of his numbers start with a 5 from now on. I think he does it. I think he hits 50 goals. I think he's shooting the puck a ton right now and not getting rewarded for it. In a way that usually indicates a player is, just not getting the shooting luck that maybe they deserve. So I tend to believe that Caufield finds a way to get to 50. I talked about it on yesterday's episode during our weekly forecast. It's my almost guarantee. Caufield, I think, is going to score against the Utah Mammoth. We'll see how that plays out today as you're listening to this. All right. Rapid fire through the next couple. Ivan Demidov, 17 points so far, 66-point pace. That would be the 3rd best Habs rookie season from a forward for point total. I think that's well within range for him. I actually think he's kind of underplaying what we might have expected from him, not necessarily from a production standpoint, but from a shift-to-shift relevance standpoint. I think I kind of expect him to be more in those conversations on a shift-by-shift basis, so we'll see if he pulls this. But I'm going to take the slight over on 66. I think he hits that and maybe gets a little bit more. Lane Hutson, 18 points so far, 70-point pace. That would be the 7th most for a Habs D in a season. Just a couple points ahead of what he had last year. I think 70 points is well within range for him. Again, that power play gets going again. It's the rising tide that raises all ships here. Hudson gets more points. Demidov gets more points. Suzuki gets more points. Caufield probably scores more. So that power play, I think, is paramount to these guys getting, hitting these totals that they're on pace for. Mike Matheson, 14 points, on pace for 54, which would be the 3rd best of his career with no power play time. So that's kind of an important caveat here, that he's doing all of this and creating all of this with no time spent on the power play. Really incredible stuff. Obviously, he saved it for a contract year, but I think that this is kind of just more along the lines of where this player will be for a while. I really hope he stays as a Montreal Canadien. A couple more here. Noah Dobson, 15 points, 58 points. That would be the 2nd most of his career. And he's only on power play 2. So, you have to imagine with power play 1, he's getting way more production. He's up towards that 70-point plateau that he hit as an Islander. That's sort of more along the lines of where he would be should he have that power play time. But the Canadiens are in a spot where they don't need him to have that power play time. And they've been giving him some strong power play minutes as well on those 5-on-3s, which I have disagreed with, but it at least shows that the Canadiens believe that this guy has more offense in the tank. And the last two here are Juraj Slafkovsky, and we'll get into him a little bit more in the second segment as well, but on the defensive side. Slafkovsky has 10 points this season, which is on pace for 39, which is a 12-point drop from what he had last year. He had 2 seasons of 50 points, one of 50, one of 51. So I think that breaks. I don't think he stays at this low pace point-wise for a while. The one that is interesting, though, is he's currently got 6 goals. He's on pace for 23, which would be a career high in goals. So he's getting a little more selfish with the puck, probably for the right reasons. He's scoring a bunch. But I think his goals will probably stay on that pace, but I think his assists will pick up. I don't think there's any reason to believe that this incredible playmaker all of a sudden decided he doesn't know how to set up plays anymore. So we'll see how all of those play out. I want to know what you think. Put it down in the comments below this video. Send it to us via email, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Let me know, are these guys going to hit these paces? Is there another player who's on pace for something that you think is maybe unattainable, or maybe we're not talking enough about? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. All right, let's leave that there. When we come back, I want to talk about Juraj Slafkovsky and his potential ability to penalty kill. It might solve a lot of problems for the Canadiens if they're able to convert him into a penalty killer. So we'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track. And that can mean you're leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. For me, my favorite part is that I can share my view with my partner. We can see our shared goals. Me and my wife can make better financial decisions because of that. And Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money is going and how to make it work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKDOWNNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKDOWNNHL for half off your first year. Today's episode is also brought to you by Doer. I am so excited about the new clothes that I got from Doer. I've been reaching for my new Doer jeans for everything. They're comfortable, so I can wear them around the house. They also double as casual attire for work when I go into the office or when I want to hang out with friends. Doer jeans have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim. You've worn those jeans that just don't have any give to them. Doer jeans, on the other hand, are super stretchy, maximizing comfort. And made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture. This is huge for me. It's probably my favorite part about these jeans. My body runs super hot, so Doer allows me to wear the jeans that I love while keeping cool. Doer are pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. They invented the original performance denim, and once you've worn a pair, you're not going to want to go back to the other stuff. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Trust me, once you try these, they'll be your go-to, just like they are for me. Get a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Go to doer.ca/lockedoncanadiens and you'll get 15% off your first order. That's DUER.ca/lockedoncanadiens for 15% off. Doer.ca/lockedoncanadiens. All right, we're back. And it's we're stealing content. No, we're not stealing content. We're stealing a question. I was listening to the Bastian Gunin notebook this week, and a listener for there asked about potentially using Juraj Slafkovsky on the penalty kill, because he finds that the listener found that he's quite reliable in the defensive zone, and I have to agree with him. I think he's come a long way in the defensive zone. It was not that way early on in his career, especially his rookie season. You remember, he just kind of lost track of where he was at all times in anywhere on the ice. Honestly, he was getting used to the size of the NHL rink. He was not aware of his positioning. That has changed a great deal for him over the course of his young NHL career. The numbers here are kind of tough to parse out, and the numbers are great defensively for him. I'll get into them in a second. But the reason why they're tough to parse out is he's playing with an elite defensive forward in Nick Suzuki, and it's sort of a wonder of, is this the tail wagging the dog sort of deal? So on ice, expected goals against per 60 is at 2.26, which is the lowest on the team. Of all players with at least 300 minutes in the NHL, Slaf is 13th in the National Hockey League. Caufield at 24, Demidov at 31, Suzuki at 45. So, there's a bit of a gap between Slafkovsky, Caulfield, Demidov, and Suzuki. I was kind of surprised to see Demidov there as well, but I think a lot of that is kind of sheltering, that those lines. His line typically doesn't get a ton of tough assignments. On ice shot attempts against per 60, 42.03, which is the lowest on the team for Slafkovsky. So I guess the question is how much of this is truly Nick Suzuki and how much of this is just that line playing really effective defense and how much of it is, Juraj Slafkovsky being a participant on that line and not just, a passenger. I think in hockey specifically, because it's, it is a sport that you rely on the guys on the ice for a lot of your production, both, hard stats like goals, assists, that sort of thing, but also, in just the way that your line is perceived. I kind of wonder, I kind of think a lot of that is nonsense, not in the sense that it means that, the line that you're on has no impact on what you're doing. Quite the opposite. It has a lot of impact on what you're doing. However, Juraj Slafkovsky is part of that line. And that line takes a lot of minutes. It takes a lot of hard matchups against really good teams and really good players. You when the Canadiens go on the road, you see that the other teams want to hard match whatever line they're on, which is why now that Slafkovsky finds himself on a different line, maybe it's a little bit harder for teams to hard match against those three. But now also you potentially have a situation where you're getting Slafkovsky away from those hard matches and you're finding situations for him to be not only better off offensively playing with Demidov and Kapanen and being in positions to score, but also getting away from strong offensive players and maybe being able to work on his defense a little bit better and be a little bit more successful. That's to say that top line of Suzuki, Caufield, and Slafkovsky was already very good on, defensively. They've come a long way as well. I'm wondering, how much we start to see if Slafkovsky can be that guy for that line of Kapanen and Demidov, because Kapanen, he's no Suzuki defensively, but he's not a mess. He's actually quite good defensively. So I wherever you put Slafkovsky, he's going to be in a situation where almost by default he's being not sheltered, but there's another defensive forward near him, right? If Jake Evans was his center, we'd be saying the same things. I personally think that Juraj Slafkovsky would be quite a good penalty killer. I think the way he sees the game in the defensive zone has improved. He leads the Canadiens forwards in shot blocks. I believe he has 19 shot blocks so far, which obviously the defensemen lead in that category. I think the top four in that position, in that stat, are defensemen, which is how, hockey always nets out. But I do think that matters because it means that he sees the shooting lanes and he has a willingness to get in them. He's not shying away from it. I think Slafkovsky sees shot blocking as as a way for him to set up his teammates for offense. If I can block a shot and we can get the puck going the other way, maybe we have an odd man rush. I think he's always kind of thinking in the offensive way, which is the right way to be thinking about it. I think Marty said this a few years ago. The point of defending is to stop defending, right? So if you have offensively minded players on the penalty kill, a lot of times they're thinking, I want to go score. I want to create an offensive opportunity. So I'm going to try to knock the puck away from them and go the other way. So I wonder if Slafkovsky can sort of fit in that mold. I know they're not comparable players, but the thought I think is like Mitch Marner playing on the penalty kill when he was in Toronto and now with Vegas, and you'll see it at the Olympics as well. He's a fast, skilled playmaker. He's always thinking offense, even when he's penalty killing, and he is quite good defensively. He's always thinking offense. I wonder if that's a way for Slafkovsky to find his way onto that penalty kill. And speaking of the Olympics, I think that's when we can first see it. The Slovakian team isn't going to be full of NHLers. It's not a full NHL squad by any stretch of the imagination. I wonder how much we start to see Slafkovsky being used as an alpha option in a lot of places for Team Slovakia. He'll be on the power play. He'll be probably on their top line. I believe he was one of the three listed locks for their team, so to speak, when they had to announce their first 3 players over the summer. So I think there's a really good chance we see him on the penalty kill for Slovakia in the Olympics, and I wonder if Montreal hasn't done it yet, if that gives Marty the confidence to say, you know what, he can do this. I'm going to give him a shot when he gets back from the Olympics, or maybe we start to see him penalty kill a little bit before we get to that point. So really curious to see if that's something that we can rely on in the future. I'm not sure that we'll get to that point, but it is worth questioning. I thought it was a great question this week earlier on Basu and Godin, like I noted, and I wanted to dive into the numbers a little bit more. All right, let's leave that there. When we come back, it's back to goaltending. I looked into some of the numbers regarding the Canadiens goaltenders, and I have come to the conclusion that any thoughts that this is on anybody else other than the goaltenders, I think is misguided. The goalies need to clean this up. I'll talk about how they can possibly do that when we come back on Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And you're listening to a hockey show. If you want to do what I do, I love putting a couple bucks down here or there on an anytime goal scorer. I keep saying against the Mammoth, I think Caufield is a lock to score in that game. If I was going to put something down, I would put a couple bucks down on anytime goal scorer Caufield against the Utah Mammoth. That's how I like to stay on these games. It keeps those games exciting, and it keeps me, especially when it's not the Canadiens, it keeps me watching games that I might otherwise not be watching. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, final segment here on what I always call these laureless shows. These are fourth line shifts. I'm just trying to put the puck in deep and wait for the star to get back on the ice, which is Laura Saba. So we're getting the puck in deep here. We're about to change, but the last thing I want to talk about on this one is goaltending. It's been a topic of conversation for a long time, and in diving into the numbers, this is a moment where the eye test firmly matches what the statistics are telling us. So Dobes will be back in the net against Utah this evening when Montreal takes on the Mammoth and closes out their season series against the Mammoth. It's weird. This will be the second Western team they're already finished against. So very odd that the NHL schedules this way. But anyway, the Canadiens have the 7th fewer high danger chances against at 5-on-5, but they have the 4th lowest high danger save percentage. So at 5-on-5, that means the Canadiens are not giving up as many high danger chances as some might think, but their goaltending is not making the saves on those high danger chances that they do give up. They have the 7th worst 5-on-5 save percentage as a team, the 3rd worst save percentage at all strengths, 10th fewest high danger chances against at all strengths, and the 5th worst high danger save percentage at all strengths. So all of this leads me to believe that the Canadiens as a team are not playing terribly. The defense is not giving up a ton of high danger grade A chances, and the goaltending is at large letting them down. But really what that comes down to for me is that when you break this down by a goaltender, there's one goaltender who's specifically letting them down when it comes to high danger save percentage, and it's Sam Montembeault. Jakub Dobes is 14th in the NHL in high danger save percentage at 0.831, so an 83% save percentage. That's among, by the way, all of these stats are via natural stat trick. They are among the top 40 goalies by time on ice. So top 40, he's 14th. That's quite good. That means he's a higher end goaltender in the National Hockey League when it comes to high danger save percentage. That's Jakub Dobes. For Montembeault, he is the lowest among those 40 goalies, a 0.726. So 73% of the time the Canadiens have a high danger chance against. Sam Montembeault is letting it go in the net. Montembeault has the 9th highest average goal distance, which means he's being beat from very far out. Dobes even further, 5th highest average goal distance. So it's what's common amongst both of these goalies is that they let up the easy one. And that number might be a little misleading in the sense that a lot of the time it's through traffic, but we've seen enough to know that a lot of the time it's not through traffic. A lot of the time it's a puck from deep that is a wrist shot. It's not that tough. And a lot of times it's going almost right at them and it's going through them. Or in Montembeault's case, he's sliding the wrong way. He's not trusting his positioning. That to me is what, when I see those numbers. And I harped on the Montembeault one last year, even though he was quite good last year. The Montembeault getting beat from deep was not something we made up. It was a statistical proven fact that he was getting beat from deep. So both of these guys being top 10 in this category is bad for the Montreal Canadiens. It means the Canadiens are forcing shots from far away, which are supposed to be lower percentage shots, and not being rewarded by their defensive efforts to keep those guys further away. The Canadiens also don't give up a lot of rush chances. Among these 40 goalies by time on ice, Sam Montembeault has seen the 7th fewest rush attempts against, and Dobes the 3rd fewest rush attempts against. So there's not, up until lately, the Canadiens have given up a lot of odd man rushes, which has been bad. That's not been a great part of the way that they've been playing. But generally speaking, across the season so far, Montreal does a good job defending the rush. They keep shots to the outside. They have very active sticks to knock things away. I think that that's something that the Canadiens defense has done quite well. And again, this theme that the Canadiens goaltending has not rewarded the Canadiens defense for forcing those shots seems to loom large over this team. Montembeault has the 2nd fewest rebound attempts against, which is not all that surprising. He doesn't give up a ton of rebounds. Montembeault was surprising, 15 fewest rebound attempts against. He gives up a lot of rebounds, so to me that means the Canadiens are knocking rebounds away. Even though he's coughing up those pucks, the Canadiens are making his life easier, and yet it still has not benefited the Canadiens when Dobes has been on the ice. The last 2 stats for each of these guys. Montembeault has the 5th lowest expected goals against and the 6th lowest for Dobes. So these guys should be much higher up on the expected goals against category. They should be, there are not a lot of expected goals being fired at these 2 goalies, and yet a lot of them are going in. 9th lowest high danger shots against, 3rd lowest high danger shots against for Dobes. So 9th for Montembeault, 3rd for Dobes. So what this all leads me to believe is that when it comes to Dobes, I think that he has the easiest chance to remedy the season that he's had. I shouldn't even say the season that he had. The first half of his season so far was excellent, and the last half has not been very good. I think his is the easiest to remedy. It's just cleaning up the easy one because his high danger save percentage is okay. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to do what you can do. When it comes to Montembeault, on the other hand, I find his path to turning this around is not easy. He has to clean up the easy ones as well, right? Like we noted the average goal distance for him was also top 10 in the National Hockey League. But I find that it's the fact that those and the hard ones beat him, the tough saves beat him. Sometimes you just need a save. You need a save on a play that's tough to make a save on. And right now, Montembeault can't give you either of those. So, the fact that Dobes is getting back-to-back starts, it leads me to believe that the Canadiens are kind of also thinking that. Now, with 3 games in 4 nights, the Canadiens are going to have to use both of these goalies. They can't continue to ride Dobes. So maybe this is just a way of saying, we'll give Dobes the Mammoth game, and then Dobes is going to have to get one of Vegas or Colorado and Montembeault the other one. I'm curious to see what they do. I wonder if they go Vegas for Montembeault so that the high-flying Colorado Avalanche, you're putting your better goalie in the net in Jakub Dobes. So I'm curious to see how the rest of this week plays out, but wanted to dive into the numbers a little bit to get to the bottom of really why the goaltending has been so frustrating. Visually, that's obvious, right? The goals against are bad. That's a number that you don't really need a lot of, math understanding to come to the conclusion that they're not playing all that well. But some of these underlying numbers, at least for Dobes, are potentially a little more relieving. But for Montembeault, the Canadiens have done a great job in front of both of these goaltenders in limiting high danger chances, and yet Montembeault has just really not rewarded them with the saves that they need. All right, with that, let's do our trivia and then finish up our fourth line shift, and hopefully have Laura back here tomorrow night. After the Utah game, we'll be having our pajama party because it will be a late game. So you're welcome to join us in your pajamas to listen to Thursday morning's episode. But let's do our trivia. Yesterday's question: in 2 games, Brendan Gallagher will tie Tom Johnson for 16th in all-time games played by a Montreal Canadien with 857. Since the start of the season, how many players has Gallagher passed in all-time games played for the Montreal Canadiens? As of November 25th, the answer is 3. Jacques Lemaire at 853, Mario Tremblay at 852, and Ralph Backstrom at 844. Once again, thanking StatHead for providing me with the tools to find that question. And the answers came to us from David Waddy, who also had the players, and Marc Couturier, who answered the correct number of 3. So thank you for playing, both of you. And as always, we do trivia just about every day, if we don't have it, we'll let you know. But keep playing trivia with us. Send in the comments below the YouTube video. Send it to us, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. That's how you get your answers in. All right, today's question. Only 2 rookie Habs forwards have played over 80 games in their rookie seasons. Who are they? So who are the only 2 rookie Habs forwards who have played over 80 games in their rookie seasons? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Send it to us any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. And that is going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcasting network. Thanks to you. Listeners like you guys keep us going. Make sure you're subscribed to us wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your next listen, go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. NHL Game Night, they're live every night, breaking down every game. Sometimes if the Canadiens do something cool, you'll hear from us. We'll show up on that show with our thoughts. But really, what you're getting the local league-wide, the local stories that matter, but on a league-wide approach. You could sort of have a better understanding of everything that's happening in the league. So go check out Locked On NHL wherever you get your podcasts, including here on YouTube. You can find the show Locked On Canadiens everywhere we're posting things: Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok primarily. So follow us on all those places. You can email us, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We do a mailbag every week, so send those in. We'll do a mailbag on Friday, so get them in for Thursday night so we can talk to you guys on the show. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find my co-host Laura at The Actor Stick. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you guys tomorrow.